The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars. The stars.
Hi! Happy Friday! Woo-hoo. Okay, so let us get started as our guest chimes in, because I do want to get through some things before he comes on, actually. So I'm excited, which I usually am excited for the guests who come on no better time than the present. But let me say tonight's conversation with Ja will be interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. Hey, Thomas. Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in to No Better Time Than the Present. I'm your girl, myeloma chick, Yolanda. So today we have a conversation with Jahlove Serrano. Okay, Jahlove is a advocate for the HIV and AIDS community. So we're looking forward to having a conversation with him. Hold on, let me make sure. Let me check something. Okay. So, just to set it up a little bit about what we're going to talk about this evening as we wait for Jahlove to come on. Okay. We know that HIV and AIDS has kind of been like an elephant, that elephant in the room for some people, either people have known someone who has contracted the virus or someone who has died from the virus, either or. For some people, it can tend to be that elephant in the room. And we know from the time of this whole epidemic of the AIDS virus, there's been a lot of changes in terms of the drugs to help defeat it, which is a good thing. However, I think some people feel you don't hear about it as much, so you just assume that it's not still an issue, but it is. You know what I'm saying? So, tonight we're going to have Jahlove speak about it. I wanted to talk a little bit, okay, like I said, what we're going to talk about. So, HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. Okay, HIV is a virus that attacks cells that help the body fight infection, making a person more susceptible to other infections and diseases. Okay, this virus spreads by contact with certain bodily fluids of a person with HIV, most commonly during unprotected sex or use of shared drug paraphernalia. Hello. Well, we getting a nice thing, but hello, Ja, where are you? Okay, so HIV can turn into AIDS, okay, which AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, and considered a late stage of HIV. Because of present medications available, these drugs help stop the progression of the virus. Oh, there you go. I was wondering, love. um, so before he comes on, let me talk a little bit about some myths. So I know I posted some certain stigmas that is attached to this particular virus. So, myths. There is a cure for AIDS. Again, like I said, I feel like some people tend not to, I think they feel like it's going away. Just like this whole COVID virus. Like, you don't hear too much conversation about it in the news. So automatically you feel that, oh, well, they good over there. You know what I'm saying? So the fact is that there is no cure for AIDS. Okay. It's considered a chronic immune system disease caused by the HIV virus. So remember I said it's the HIV virus which progresses to AIDS, if not taking any medications or what have you. So with the help of medications, they control the infection and prevent disease progression. Okay, myth. You cannot have children while infected with the HIV virus. No. With the HIV, if a pregnant woman has the HIV virus, and if she moves forward with the HIV treatment throughout her pregnancy, that can give her child a chance of HIV free, if that makes any sense. And Jar, when you come on, please correct me if I'm not saying stuff right, but I did my little research. HIV is considered a gay disease. The fact to that is false. I think we kind of know.
Hey,
Hey,
love. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My
I
setup,
was like, oh my
no,
God. Oh my
no,
God.
my setup went down before, so I had to like restart my phone. It was
Yeah, I've been
red.
there, so I totally get it. But
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie, I was kind of like,
no, it
oh, let
was
me
on my
my
calendar. I was on my.
email.
Let me tell you, I was like, okay. I was like, listen, ring light fell, and I was like, oh, and I was like, what is going on?
But you're here
I
and
am
we love it.
here. Okay.
So what I was doing, I was just giving like a little fact check in terms of
Yeah.
what we're talking about. And I've started that like this year for the series, like
Mhm.
giving people like a little lesson in terms of whatever the condition is. So that way
Right.
they have a little thing. So I was right here at the part of the myth
Okay.
of HIV.
Yeah.
So one would be, well, this was the last one that I was saying, is that it's considered a gay disease, which is false.
Right.
And though the HIV is disproportionately, it impacts the LGBTQ community,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean no one else can get it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so
That, yeah.
I think that myth has kind of wind out a little bit, but maybe you could tell us a little bit more, because I think some people are still in la la land thinking that, oh, well, that can't happen to me. Um, it can happen to young, it can happen to old,
Yeah.
especially the older community, because I know over time I've been hearing some interesting stories, so it can really affect anybody. So.
Yeah. So yes, there's definitely a misconception that what you would call that nobody can contract HIV. Yes, is HIV still heavily stigmatized towards the LGBTQ plus community, specifically gay men? Absolutely. But fun fact, HIV is seen as a gay disease only in the United States, but globally it's seen as a heterosexual disease because it's globally more heterosexual are contracting HIV than the LGBTQ plus community. And so, yes, there's still the stigmatization. Also, the stigmatization has been continuing just because of the ignorance that people spew on social media. When somebody have contracted HIV, they always pin it on this down low community that continues. It's a mess. It is honestly a mess, but honestly, to tell you the truth, if you are engaging in unprotected sex or high-risk behaviors, you're susceptible to contract HIV and a slew of other STDs and STIs and even unwanted pregnancy. And so, when you're having sex and you're not knowing your partner's status, that's for sure a way to put yourself at risk from contracting HIV. But we live in a great day and age where there's biomedical interventions such as PEP and PrEP. Also, there is I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but there is.
Well, yeah, let's
Yeah,
go
yeah,
back.
yeah. Also,
Which is good. Which is
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I
Also,
want to do your bio, but go ahead, finish your
yeah.
thought.
And then also, I heard the question about like, can HIV positive people have a healthy negative baby? Yes, there are ways. As you were saying, like if a mother's on her HIV treatment during her pregnancy, the it is required that the mother stay on her medication and that she has a cesarean section so that it'll be less likely for the baby to be contact with her bodily fluids through the birth canal. And then then the baby will still be taking medication. Babies are only when they're born HIV positive, they become negative because as we all was born, we was born with our mother's immune system, and then we shed it after a few weeks. And so they will keep the baby on HIV meds until they develop their own immune system. And then if a guy wants to have a baby, there's a thing called sperm washing, where HIV does not live on the actual sperm cell, but it lives in the seminal fluid. And so there will have to be the washing of the sperm and then in vitro. So it's a whole process if a guy wants to get their wife pregnant or a surrogate pregnant. But for the mother, if the mother's HIV positive, that will be her process, the medication and the cesarean and X, Y, and Z. Which all these things are Googleable, people.
I'm gonna love this conversation. Here you have Glam to Adrian said, "Come on, nephew, teach the people," because you're definitely teaching me some stuff. So even though I did my research, but yeah, bring it on. Okay, but before we continue, I just want to give a little shout out on your bio. Okay.
All right.
So Jahlove Serrano is a health educator, a youth advocate, and an HIV/AIDS activist, a androgynous runway model coach, a drag queen, background dancer, and choreographer to the stars. He's a Guatemalan American native of Bronx, New York. Hey to New York. Jahlove contracted HIV a couple of days shy of his 16th birthday. He decided to take a leadership role amongst his peers and community to be very public about his HIV status to combat ignorance and stigma around HIV/AIDS. He's working in the field of HIV/AIDS prevention, outreach, and research. He's also taken on this important work globally and locally to address the needs of HIV positive and negative youth. Jahlove has worked with New York City AIDS Institute, National Gay Men's Advocacy Coalition, the Global Network of People Living with HIV/AIDS, North America AIDS Alliance, the White House, and the Department of Health. You've been busy. He's currently on a national campaign called HIV Stops With Me, New York City in Care campaign, and Janssen Positively Fearless Global campaign. Jahlove uses his entertainment platform to promote HIV/AIDS awareness and education throughout the United States and globally. And we are very honored and happy that you're joining me this evening, love. Mwah.
No, thanks for having me, love. I'm excited to be here. Sorry for being late, but I'm here. I'm here.
Don't we? So I told people I was going to give like a little fact, whatever, as how we met. So for those who tune in, I guess you would see. Okay. So we met through Jansen. It was some conference
Healthy
just
voices.
before the pandemic, actually.
Yeah,
Everything was popping just before that pandemic.
yeah.
Okay. And it's funny because I recall seeing you on a plane. I was like, because Jahlove is tall, for those who want to know. So it's like, okay,
I love it.
yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, whatever. So you know how traveling can be. You're trying to get to where you need to get to, So he was sitting right behind me. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I think getting off the plane, I was having some struggles getting my bag out the carry thing. And he was such a gentleman. I was like, oh, thank you. And then, we're going about our business.
Yeah.
And then, we're going the same place. We met each other at the little cab cubby thing. And I was like, okay, so that's the little fun fact
Yes.
of how we met.
That was a fun conference here too.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a
Yes.
conference called Healthy Voices, which brings health advocates that advocate online together to help boost their platform and strengthen their platform or their advocacy. So yes. Hey,
We
mom.
love it.
My mom is in the comments.
Oh. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Okay. First, because I have a list of questions, but
Okay.
something may answer anyway.
Mhm.
So I'll just kind of like bring things back or what have you. So share with us briefly your experience, how you contracted HIV.
So my story goes back to about 2000. A little background again. I was raised in a Catholic, heterosexual, Latino household, Afro-Latino household. And so my mother's sex ed was don't bring a girl home pregnant. So I already knew that check. And so I was bullied throughout my adolescence and junior high days. And so when I got into high school, I wanted to change the narrative of me because I was always an effeminate male because I was always around my sisters. My brothers didn't want to hang around me, so I was just always around my sisters and my mom. And naturally, I picked up their habits, their mannerisms, because I was just like, I'm always around them. But of course, getting bullied and teased, being called the F word, I was just like, when I got into high school, I wanted that to change. So when I got into high school, my main goal was to be popular. And my and how I figured out I can do that was that I lied about having sex. I lied about having sex with I just lied about having sex because it was always that kid that always talked about having sex. I was that kid in high school. And I used my brother's stories, right? Because I always pretend like I was sleeping when they used to talk about what they did when mommy was at home. And so I used their stories and acted like it was my stories, which worked because then I had friends in each grade, classmen, and everybody wanted to know what I did, if I had fun the weekend before or this, that, before. And so I passed my freshman year with the high school popularity that I wanted. Barely passed my grades, but I was a popular kid. And so I knew returning back to high school that I could not come with actual story of having sex. People started to question my stories, like, is this boy actually having sex or is he lying? And so I decided to cut school the second day of my sophomore year of high school. To have sex for the first time, and I ended up contracting HIV, my first sexual encounter. 15 on to 16. And I met the guy. I met the guy in the summertime started my sophomore year of high school. I was working a summer job. In my last summer job, I was shopping with my then best friend, and we went to the village. And I saw him when I first got there, but I was like, if it's meant to be, we'll exchange numbers when I see him leaving. I saw him when I was leaving. We exchanged numbers. We talked for a little bit of the end of the summer, and we made that appointment date to meet up. And instead of going to school that Friday, I went to his house. And I didn't know his status. I didn't know how to protect myself for anything because the high school curriculum still to this day is so heterosexual based. And so I knew about STIs, STDs, including HIV. But I thought these were things that you contract when you are having heterosexual sex. Anything that happened when you had same sex. And so I didn't care to ask questions. And again, I wanted to have the experience so I can tell my friends. And so I left his house. I celebrated the whole weekend. And when Monday came, I was excited to tell my friends because during our lunch period, we talked about what we did during the weekend, what shows we watched, if we went anywhere, etc. And so they already knew I was going to meet up with the guy, so they was anticipating the story of what went down. And as I was about to tell my story, my friend was scared for his friend because he had sex with the same guy, and they knew his status because they went to the same church, and he disclosed in front of the whole church. So in my mind, I'm like, no, it can't be the same guy. Happened to be the same guy, and his friend ended up being negative, but I was the one that contracted HIV from him.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's like no words. There's no words.
Yeah. I was young, but hey, I say shit happened.
But I can imagine to be so young. Like the last couple of guests that we've had have been people younger, and their experiences with whatever their situations are. And I can imagine fresh in high school, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And to have this happen
Mhm.
and to kind of know the word, but just as you said, you didn't think it was something that would affect,
Yeah.
same sex. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So how did you, I guess, get around that? Like, I know you're at a point now
Yeah.
where, okay, you've adjusted and you've moved on,
Yeah.
but a 16-year-old,
Mhm.
barely 16, how was that for you?
It was honestly a difficult point in my life because not only was I struggling with my sexuality or being comfortable with my sexuality, then there was things that you heard like, oh, that's your punishment. Um, Contracting HIV is your punishment for being gay, right? So you hear these things, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is my punishment because these are the things that you hear. Then also at the same time, my mother kicked me out for being gay. So I around that time I became possibly HIV positive, high school dropout, and homeless. So that was my life around in 2001. And so there was no wrapping my mind behind my health status because I'm just like, I went in survival mode. I was like, okay, I moved into my aunt's house, I started working at McDonald's for $5.15 an hour. And just really in my mindset was like, let me save up as much money as I can so I can get my own apartment. And if I do have this disease, I'll die in my own apartment and nobody has to worry about me. That was my mindset then. And it took a while for me to unlearn all these things. I mean, I was angry, upset, depressed, suicidal, you name it. It was all these emotions that I was having because I didn't know what was actually happening in my body. I just knew what people told me. And it took for it took for me to get connected with the right people, to have a better mindset with living with this disease, for me to be the space that I am today, which will come out eventually as we continue talking. But still
Right,
didn't get the question.
right. So, okay. Woosah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, okay. I kind of want to reflect again to the younger
Yeah.
you. Okay. How vocal were you with your medical team? How was that experience as a young person who has contracted this virus? Were the doctors, um, what's a good word? Were they good? You know what I'm saying? Or
So
do you have to, like, just like a lot of people, we have to like filter out who is giving me the best medical
yeah.
advice to get me through?
So I didn't know I didn't know then what I know now. As long as you're 13 years of age and above, as in New York State, that you could go and get a STI and STD screening without your parental consent. So I waited till I was about 18 to get tested, just so that if I was positive, if the test came back positive, that they wouldn't call my parents. Um, and so from 16 to 18, I was undiagnosed. Just having a suspicion if I was HIV positive. I didn't have sex with anybody between that time because I also didn't know if I was HIV positive. So once I got tested, I went to a clinic that was up the block from my mother's house. And then you had to wait 2 weeks to get your results. So within that 2 weeks, I was just so nervous, praying to every God, just like, please let me not be HIV positive. And when I went back to get my results, I didn't want to receive my results because I was just like, if I don't know, then I don't have to worry. But if I do know, then there's the thoughts of like, who's gonna love me? How much are my parents? All these things were going through my head. But when I went to the clinic, everything started happening in slow motion. And when the words came out of her mouth, Mr. Serrano, HIV positive, it went in one ear and went out of another because you just confirmed my suspicions. And then I had to get to work because I was just like, I can't deal with this right now. Um, it took for me working at a hospital as a peer navigator that led me to really be invested into my care because that's when I knew more about HIV. I was actually helping other youth get tested and giving them free condoms and all these things and it was a great summer job that I felt comfortable with the staff that I told my manager at the end of that work summer cycle. She took me down to the clinic. They retested me. Of course, it came back positive. And that's when I had a nurse practitioner, a nutritionist, a psychiatrist, a social worker, a healthy team to help me navigate my diagnosis. And once I was definitely in care, that's when everything really settled in. And again, I was still in my early teens, 18, 19, I believe. And that's when I was just like, oh shit, like I'm HIV positive. And that's when the realities kicked in because I was just like, now I have to think about taking meds. Now I have to know what's happening, what's actually happening in my body, and how to treat this disease. And that's when a light bulb came on. I was like, if I'm gonna die yesterday, this is my mindset. If I'm gonna die yesterday, let me do everything I want to do today and before I expire out of this world. So that's when like things started to feel real to me.
All right. Wow. I mean, you have gone through a very amazing journey, a very scary one to say the least. Ooh, so I know you put a lot of work and a lot of various outreach campaigns that you've been working with. How important is it to educate this community about HIV and
I
AIDS?
think I think it's so important because I didn't see the representation or visibility of people living with HIV just in general. And so like I like that my page is a world of resource, no matter your color coded creative sexual orientation. You can get some information from my page. And I think that putting my face on the disease is just like people, my inbox stay full with people who are newly diagnosed, no matter their color, code, or sexual orientation, or questioning on how's the process of getting tested or how's the process of getting on meds. Um, and it's been through my social media campaign and through the campaigns that I've been part of because people still look at HIV as a death sentence. It's still stigmatizing. Unfortunately, it's still stigmatizing. And, but somebody has to do the work and and I have to show visibility because I think visibility does help and hurt at the same time because it helps because it shows that HIV positive people exist. We living healthy, longer lives. But the hurt part is just that a lot of these campaigns just show the LGBTQ plus community or more gay men, and so that continues the stigmatization around this disease that only gay people are contracting HIV, which is such a farce.
Right. It's funny that you said that because just as I said before, a lot of times we hear the word, like I said, for some people it is that elephant in the room, right? So you automatically think, oh, it's those people over there.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, again, as we just spoke about, that's not really the reality.
No.
There's a lot of work. Like, I appreciate the work that you do as a
Thank you.
patient leader because I feel our voices are very much needed. I think sometimes certain campaigns or certain whatever, like our voices are used, but I don't think they really, maybe for some, is used like the right way as to hit everybody who it needs to hit. So
Right.
sometimes there can be some fine tuning in how we kind of go about spreading the awareness with things.
Yeah.
So
From what I know, it's just that a lot of these campaigns are sponsored by the Department of Health, and how the Department of Health works is just by numbers, right? And they go by trends. And so if the numbers are coming in as far as people being diagnosed in specific demographics, they're going to funnel money into that campaign to get the message out to a specific community. And that's where what I'm saying? If you're matching the numbers, it's always going to be stigmatizing, right? But if you want to put a universal message so that everybody gets tested, then you should also work with the numbers, but also work with breaking down the stigmatization, But unfortunately, the Department of Health, they work with numbers.
good point. It's funny because what Philly J. Johnpreneur, I'm sorry, Boo, if I'm messing your thing up. He said AIDS is advocates intentionally destroying stigmas, and that is so
Yeah.
true. Kudos for that one. That is so true. It's, I don't know, it can be tiring, I think, especially when you're in these particular atmospheres,
Yeah.
if you will, and you see how things work, and like you said with public health or what have you, they go by numbers, and you kind of see where it's not leveling.
No.
Okay, it is like a
No, the
child
map ain't
trying to
mapping,
figure it
right?
out.
Well,
Yeah, it's
well, to
not
them,
mapping.
well, to them the map is mapping, and then to to us, it's just like yes, but there's still more communities, right? Like my best friend, she's a heterosexual woman, and her husband are together, they're married, and she's HIV positive, he's HIV negative, and they have my godson who is HIV negative, right? And so that is what the medical term would be called a zero discordant relationship. So there's plenty of people out there that are dating, loving, being in healthy relationships with an HIV positive person where their partner is negative, whether gay or straight, bi or indifferent, right? There are plenty of examples, but you don't hear about those. You just hear that you hear more stories of a HIV positive person that's most likely not on meds, that is infecting other people, but unbeknownst to them. Because most of the times when people do know about their HIV status, it's a complete shutdown. Like I didn't want nobody to touch me. I didn't want to do anything with anybody because of the stigmatization. But once I learned all the facts, how to protect myself, how to keep myself healthy, and how to protect others, it was just like, okay, then the conversations of me dealing with other partners came along. Wasn't easy, still isn't easy to this day, but it got easier as I knew all the facts and how to have the conversation with other people. So when you hear those stories of like one HIV positive person infected like 90, some of those stories are so farce. They're so not true. And it's so far from the truth, but people just use those stories to be like, and this is what all you HIV positive people do. I'm like, no, that's not all of us. And 9 out of 10, that person probably didn't even know their status.
Right. It's a lot. Like, back to the young again. Like when you go out into the community and you speak to a lot of young people, how
Uh-huh.
do you, because I know the conversation is different with an adult versus a teenager or what have you. So
Mhm.
how is the conversation in terms of, let me educate you? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? How
Okay.
do you break it down?
So when I go into high school, colleges, community-based organization, um, it's always a new environment for me because youth in different places receive information different, right? So I never disclose the fact that I'm gay in the beginning of telling my story because I don't want the heterosexual kids to turn off their ears because again that will continue the stigmatization.
Right.
And so once I tell them that I'm HIV positive, they don't believe me because I am healthy, and then they're just like don't believe that I'm gay, right? And so those are two things that we have to work over, not work around, work over, and then to get them to understand, like, yes,
Mm.
I am HIV positive, and I'm a proud black gay man. And then they're just like, but you said shorty because I use shorty versus as him giving the person I contracted HIV a gender just for them to grasp it. And then once we get past all that, there was just like, okay, but it could have been a girl. And so how would these things be? And so like they get so tuned into my story because again, it resonated with them because I was a high school student, I was young, and I contracted HIV at a young age. And so I know the things that they're doing because we've been that age. We know just now they have more social media than we have had. But all our stories intertwine if we go back to our adolescent days. And so I connect with them on that level, and then they resonate with my story. And then I'm always getting feedback is like, where can I get tested? Thank you so much for your story. I really resonate, you know what I'm saying? And that I want to protect myself and protect my partners. And so I get a lot of amazing feedback from the youth because my story is very, they could connect with it.
I love it. And I love the fact that sometimes when we try to get these messages out, we have to meet people where they are. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I'm glad you're doing it the way you're doing it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So let me ask you, how deep is your squad? Because I'm seeing a lot of people popping on here, so that's kind of answering the question.
I,
But in terms of your support system and
mhm.
your efforts and all of that.
I have an amazing support system. I have an amazing support system in my advocacy. I have an amazing support system of friends, family, loved ones, supporters. I mean, like, some people find me through my drag and through my entertainment and find out that I do advocacy. And some people find me through my advocacy and then find out that I do drag. And so, like, I have beautiful, amazing network of people that surround me with so much love that even whenever I want to have a bad day, they're just like, you can't. Not like negative positivity, but just it's a beautiful um, network of people to remind me of my greatness and that I can overcome anything. Look what I've overcome already. And so my squad is deep and I love them. I didn't have them, and I wish I had them during my trying years, but love that they're in my life now, and I would not change that for anything.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna go back a little bit, not with the you thing. Okay, we're over that.
Okay.
I want to hear about your show in drag. Jaleesa,
Yeah, just
is it?
Jalisa. Yeah.
Do
Uh-huh.
tell. Do tell.
Okay, so just Jalisa, I would say just Jalisa definitely saved my life. Like, was a character development. I've always been a background dancer, always been in the arts, always been in the arts and theater, you name it, right? And so I had a family, a lot of us LGBTQ plus people, we gravitate towards each other and we create our families. And so I went to a show and I met my mom at the time, which is a woman of trans experience, that she was an impeccable nightlife and ballroom participant. And so background dancing for her led me to introduce to the shows, right? To drag shows and balls. And I was like, that's something I always wanted to do, but I never really had the guts. And so she did a competition, a pageant competition, and for her birthday, as a surprise, I wanted to get up in full drag and recreate her talent. And so thus, she had a dad, which was my grandpa, and he named me Jalisa. And so it was from 2006, Jalisa was born, and I've been doing drag ever since.
I love it. I love it. And you are the bomb, because I remember at Healthy Voices you performed, and I was like, what is happening here? Okay. But yeah, you're that and all that.
Thank you. I've infused my love for HIV and AIDS advocacy with my entertainment platform. So I'm like, why not do drag with a cause? And again, drag gave me so much inspiration and energy to keep going when there were days where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so to educate people and also entertain them was a blessing. I was like, oh, I have talent. I have a gift. And let me not be selfish with this gift. Let me spread it to the world. And so that's what Jalisa does. Jalisa do a thing.
You do. And I totally agree, Philly. That's awesome. It's funny
That's
because
really,
to go back a little bit, when we had that conference, I remember you were like, oh, I'm gonna go hit the clubs or something. And I know I had just met you, and I was like, yo, it's mad. Like, are you sure? Okay. Because I think you were new to that area too. Where was that? That was
I,
San Francisco or
I think it was
something.
Chicago.
It was Chicago. Okay. Well,
Oh,
where?
wait,
No, I
or was
think
it
it was
Dallas?
Chicago.
I think it was Dallas.
Yeah, it was some
I think
place,
it was
whatever.
Dallas.
But
I think it
yeah,
was
but I
Dallas.
feel
Yeah,
like
it was
you were
Dallas.
new to the area or what have
Yeah.
you, just as I. And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, listen, I'm gonna
But I
find a
was so
party.
worried. I'm like, you going outside? Because I know me, like, I'm not going out. I'm going right back to my hotel room. Okay,
Mhm.
we're not going to go all out here. So, what are two things that you wish people knew about your condition?
Um, two things that I wish that people knew about my condition is just that it's a human disease. If you're human and experiencing human, it's part of a human experience. So like, don't treat somebody any indifferent just because they're living with HIV, and that it's okay to love somebody living with HIV, despite what anybody says, right? Um, those are two things that I really wish, because some people just get really weird around this disease about dating somebody, loving somebody, being with somebody, and it's more or less of what their friends and family would think, not them. From my experience, what I've learned, it's like, like, how am I gonna tell my parents, or like, it's always the friends and family that have an issue, that they feel like
Mhm.
it's gonna have the issue versus them.
Right.
Mm.
Oh, Philly, yeah, you on a
Yeah,
roll. It's not a death
it's
sentence. Get
not.
educated on the facts.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, but it's still that fear, right? Because there's less destigmatization of HIV and more stigmatization, right? So now everybody have a smartphone. Everybody's scrolling through social media. There's always an article that gets out there that, I wish that these platforms would do more screenings of like what information are put out there, factual information that are put out there, because then that continues the ignorance, the fear, right? And it's always that fear mongering of like, oh my God, I'm gonna take someone's child away from them if they deal with me as a person with HIV. And that's never the case, but those are the thoughts process of people.
Right. So let me ask you, I don't want to get too caught up
Okay.
because I lead into a whole other conversation,
Okay.
but the climate that we're in now, when it deals with the community, how difficult is it for you to educate in this weird climate of everybody, I feel like, is divisive and fighting and
Mhm.
this and that? There's just a whole lot happening. So how do you continue to be a wonderful patient leader to educate in this stuff that's going on?
I try to block out the noise and I try to talk to people that want to talk to me, right? There are people that just want to live in their ignorance and their anger and just not want to, you know, um, be informed, right? Even if they have the knowledge in front of them, they're so strong in their belief systems. And I don't ever want to be a person to tell somebody that they're wrong for their belief systems, because if that's what you believe, kudos to you, right? Now, or my core audience is to educate those that want to listen, that want to unlearn, unpack some of the things that they were taught, because there probably is a better way, or this is probably the way, right? And so I try to block out the negative Nancy's and those noises, and just do right by my communities and just show people through my platform, right? Because I have to be the leading example. I can't
Yes.
always just like say, someone's wrong. If that's their belief system, that's their belief systems, right? Don't inflict harm on other people, but if this is your belief system, it's your belief system. And then the facts are the facts, right? There are HIV medication out there that are keeping HIV people undetectable, which means that they cannot transmit the virus to their partner. That is scientifically proven. There's also biomedical interventions such as PEP and PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, where if you felt like you have been exposed to HIV, you have up to 72 hours to get to emergency room where they will prescribe you PEP that you'll have to take for a month. So they will be less likely for the virus to develop in your system. Or if you're a person that just likes that is possibly in a relationship with somebody who's HIV positive, there is PrEP, where is pre-exposure prophylaxis, where you could take the HIV medication for the duration of your relationship, or just if you're a person that never want to contract HIV, you could take PrEP for all of your days, right? And so there's so much happening where a person can maintain their negative status and an HIV positive can maintain an undetectable and healthy status. And I'm not saying they're not undetectable and not healthy, because there's different meanings to health. But there's so much now that if you don't want to listen to the facts, that's on you. It's on you. You know what I'm saying? Because there are groups of people that are breaking down the stigma. There are amazing medical teams that are making sure biomedical intervention is there so that all people can stay safe from ever contracting HIV, or if you are a person with HIV, that you can live a long and healthy life.
Right. Look, I can't even put it in words. Like, all of the guests that I've had, I've learned so much. I feel like this year, not to like disregard last year, but I feel like like I could just sit here and just have everybody, like later for everybody else who's tuning in, because I'm really learning a lot, and I think learning is key, right? To keep
Absolutely.
the conversation. You're conversating with me, so now I can educate someone else who still thinks that that elephant is in the room. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? But it's like, no, let me tell you about the conversation that I had with Jahlove. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me educate you.
Yeah.
You know, so
Which is so important. I mean, that's why I look at allyship, right? Allyship is just not being an ally LGBTQ plus. It's also like for other groups, religious groups, or communities, or people with health conditions, right? If you have a conversation with me, then you get to have a conversation with somebody in your inner circle that may have said something ignorant, and you say, actually, I know this because I heard this from a person living from
right,
HIV. And that's how, you know what I'm saying? I don't have to be in every room, in every space. That's what I say. I talk to those that listen to me, because then you're going to take this information to a room or a person that may never even want to have a conversation with me. You know what I'm saying? And that is, and you're right. So education is key, but the right people being
right,
educated, taking it to
right.
their communities and just, just planting those seeds, and it just go further and further.
I totally agree. It's like a collaboration. What's the word? I'm thinking of the word. I can't. It's not coming out, but it's keeping the conversation going. And as you mentioned, with the right people who have the right mindset of spreading the proper definition or the proper information, you
Yeah.
know. So looking at a number 1 to 5, okay, how do you think you've dealt with everything that you've dealt with? 1 being it's not been easy, or 5 being you've adjusted, which I'm sure both can be true.
Right. I think 4,
Okay.
4. Um, There, I'm having a lot of full circle moments in my adult years that are making sense of what I went through in my adolescence and young years.
Mhm.
That that definitely helped. That's definitely helping on my healing journey of some of my major traumas. And so, healing is a journey, not a destination. Shout out to my boy Yolo for teaching me that. And so these full circle moments are definitely making sense to me, but the process, like I'll give you an example. My best friend had asked me to do a pronouns workshop for his company, and um, I've always been great about. I think I've broken that um, wall as far as my purpose of why contracting HIV, but my sexuality was a whole different story, right? And so helping this organization, this company, and their staff understand why gender pronouns are so important, right? I was just like a ball of tears at the end, because it was just like, again, like that was a full circle moment for me, because it was just like I didn't know why, my sexuality was such an issue for other people, and still I'm not even connected to my family in that capacity. But here am I teaching, strangers, because they want to get it for their customers and for their family members. And so I'm just like, and I'm using my story and telling them why it's important. So, and the feedback I was getting, like how it was important, and they were happy that they came to the workshop and this, that, the fourth. And I was just like, oh, I get it now.
I love it. Look at that. It's, yeah, that's dope.
Yeah. So I say a 4, because it's like it was definitely rough not understanding, what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm never gonna understand my mom as a child, but as an adult, as a man and woman, I understand her more so. But her child in me just still can't fathom the fact of the matter. Like, you held me for 8 months because I was a preemie, me and my twin, and you know what I'm saying. My sexuality was something that you couldn't get over to a degree, but that was basically a religious practice, but that was something that was taught to you, right? And so I'm always looking as a mother, as a protector, as a provider that's supposed to, love and accept their child no matter what, right? But there was just some things that she couldn't get over, and as her child of me would never understand that. But as an adult man, understanding her as a woman, and that she had other kids, and just understanding life from a different perspective, I can forgive her and understand it on that capacity.
You are so dope, because a lot of people would not articulate that the way you have said that, like, even though you're estranged, right? Some people, it's like, I don't know, like a negativity. You go over here, I go over here. But the way you broke that down in terms of understanding her thoughts, of what she was thinking at that time, a lot of people can't get over it. It's not to say that you haven't gotten over it, but some people would be extra salty. Okay.
Listen.
And
And I get it, right? So that's what like healing is a journey, not a destination. And through my healing and through understanding and dealing with people from all walks of life, like I get a different perspective, right? Talking to other mothers, talking to other people, talking to I can look at the world one-sided, right? Woe is me, I've been through this, you don't understand. But if you don't get to learn the opposition point of view, then you're not going to have a full view of things, right? Because people love from their perspective, people learn from their perspective, people, you know what I'm saying? There's different levels to everything. And you know what I'm saying? If you don't have all experiences, you're not going to know everything, right? And so I try not to put myself as a person like know it all, right? I just like, if I have a feeling, I want to understand that feeling. I want to understand that person's feelings and their thoughts and action, because then I can come up with a better conclusion to things. And sometimes I just don't, right? Because it's beyond my comprehension. But it gives me a better sense of understanding, right? And so, like I said, I can understand things from certain perspectives and lenses, and just learn how to move in that space.
I love it. And it's about growth,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
growth to be a very awesome adult, to go through what you've gone through as a child, a teenager, to an adult,
Yeah.
and to just state what you stated, so eloquently without being so salty. You know what I'm saying?
Listen.
That takes a lot of maturity right there. And
Yeah.
that's dope.
Thank you. Oh, listen, don't get me. I have my days. I'll be like, oh, and I just be like, let me go to the gym, work on my aggression, or perform. I think that also, that's what I said. Like Jalisa definitely helped, because having a outlet to express myself without words at times have been such a blessing. Like I love to dance. I love to they say leave it on the dance floor. I leave it on the stage. That's why people gravitate towards my shows, because I do it with such passion, because I'm just like, listen, there's some things that I just cannot express.
Right.
Only through movement, right? And I think that if people had other healthier outlets, the world would be a better place, because it's easy for you to develop mental health issues based on a traumatization that could easily get undiagnosed. And when you behave in a certain way and no one understands, there could be so many things happening with that person, right? Something may have happened, a trigger, a trauma that has happened. But, as us being this complexion, our resources are so small,
Right.
right? And so if you don't have the finances to go to a doctor that can properly diagnose you, to get you on any medication or hell, or even a proper life coach, or just your spirituality, so many things can break down the psyche, and then we can't even connect to that person, because there was literally a trauma that develop all these things and develop all these things within this person. And then by the time we want to get to the root of the issue, that person's probably gone far or estranged from the family, because nobody wants to deal with that person, versus trying to understand what was the root of the cause. But that takes special people to care. We live in a day and age in society where it's like, not my problem. I learned that real quick.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, it's definitely that you, or me, myself, and I, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And not really any wiggle room for whatever. Whew. Okay, so what parting words would you like to tell those who are newly diagnosed?
My words were, as always, my words. It's okay not to be okay, right? I'm not gonna be the one like, oh, yeah, it's okay not to be okay. Right now, you're feeling a whole bunch of emotions. You don't know what's gonna happen. But one thing I can say that what you would call it is no longer death sentence as it used to be. Learn everything, and I mean everything that you can about HIV and AIDS, and make sure that you and your doctor have a relationship and there's not a dictatorship. If you feel like you're talking down to or at, that's not your doctor. You want a doctor or provider that's going to work with you on every step on this journey. If they're shoving medication down your throat without you having proper knowledge of it, you're not going to have smooth sailing. Learn everything, do everything on your own terms, and it's a journey, not a destination.
I love that. I love that. Very wise words. Very wise words to any community, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how and where can viewers follow you or learn more about your advocacy? Like, what do you have in the works? Do share and tell.
So in the works, I don't know. I mean, all right. Well, first you can find me here on Instagram, which is Jahlove underscore the brand. That is JAHLOVE underscore the brand. And Facebook, you can find me at Jahlove Serrano. That is JAHLOVE SERRANO. And as far as my advocacy, I believe I'm going to the United States Conference on HIV and AIDS in September. Um, I'm working on building more visibility around my advocacy. So I'm hoping to get casted on a show that highlights drag, that hopefully that I can win and like broaden my horizons to the next drag superstar. So I'm working on getting Jahlove on bigger platforms to spread more education and knowledge and awareness around this disease.
I love it. And when you have all of that, like when I see it on my feed, or we have our little info,
Uh-huh.
just send it to me so I can share it, and all of that good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Brother, I wish you nothing but the best. It really was a pleasure that we bumped into each other on the
Yes.
plane.
And this was 2 years in the making.
Okay? I
Two
think
years
it's
in the making.
yeah, I think it's three.
Yeah, 3 years in the making, but we made it. We
Like,
made
yeah.
it.
But I want to say thank you for everybody who's tuned in. This was
Yeah,
a great conversation. To know
absolutely.
better time than the present. I'll have the replays up probably the weekend or early next week. And it
And
was a pleasure.
pleasure
It really
was
was.
all mine, sister. And thank you for bringing advocates on your platform, sharing our stories. And you know what? I can't wait for you to see you on syndicated TV or have a huge podcast on YouTube and you getting your plaques and everything because you deserve your flowers. I'm so proud of all that you accomplished. And please, please, please for me, stay beautiful. That smile is a billion dollar smile.
You are the best. Oh, I want you to have a beautiful weekend.
I will.
Okay.
I
And
will.
we'll be in touch behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
stay sweet. And thank you for all that you do. We love you.